guys, Laura here. I'm here today to do a Top 5 Wednesday. The topic this week is favorite jokesters and or funny characters. So I'm gonna start this off with a character that actually is a jokester. This is actually kind of easy. This list was really easy to come up with just because I focused mostly on funny characters and funny narrators and funny protagonists. But there are a couple of people that actually pull pranks in the novels. The first one is going to be very obvious. So let's get into it. The first two characters I'm going to talk about is Fred and George Weasley from Harry Potter. Or pranks, they are the first people that come to mind. Even when I think of April Fool's Day, they are the first people that come to mind because their birthday is actually on April Fool's Day. But I love them so much. I think that in like the first four books, I would say they really do pull a lot of pranks, and it's just funny and it's endearing and it's nice, like, comic relief. And like sometimes those books weren't super dark, but dark moments were always like you could like consider them like the comic relief. But starting in book five, I think their pranks took kind of a more interesting spin, and I really liked them in the latter half of the series, especially in book 5 and 6 and 7, because their pranks, they were using them to like help the good guys in the fight against evil, and I always thought that was such like an interesting trajectory for them, and I really like that twist and turn that they did. It was such a fun, it was just like a fun path, and I'm actually in the middle of book 6 right now, so I will get to the tail. Like, they just opened up their joke shop, which is really fun. But I always thought that they were, and they weren't, they just weren't jokesters, but they were also just like really, really funny characters. They have some of like the best lines, and I just love them as a comic relief to Harry, who Harry has like a very, very sarcastic sense of humor, and Fred and George are just naturally funny. So it was just like a nice like balance between those two, and I really liked it. So that's like that's the one pair of characters that whenever you think of jokesters or humor or pranks, I always think of Fred and George Weasley from Harry Potter. The next character that I'm going to talk about is Thorn from Cress, which is the third book in the Lumiere Chronicles series by Marissa Meyer. Is definitely my favorite, one of my favorite characters in this whole series, but I just think his humor is just, and his sarcasm and the way he looks at situations is just so fun, and I love his balance that he has with Cress, because Cress is like such like an introvert. She's so like into herself, and I feel like their dynamics are just like so fun because they both need each other, but in such different ways. Like Thorn needs someone to ground him, which is what Cress is, and Cress needs someone to shake her out of her life a little bit, and I think that that's Thorn. So they balance each other so well, and I just love their dynamics as like a pair. But I also think Thorn is just so funny, and I think his take on like this chaotic world they're in and all the situations that they're going on is just so fascinating, and I love like hearing his one-liners are so funny, and I really, really want to reread Cress. I know I'm probably gonna have to reread the whole series, but what I might do is I might reread Cress in winter first, because I really do enjoy those books. But that's my thought, and that's why I love Thorn so much, and he's definitely one of my top book boyfriends, but he's definitely on my top funny characters in all of middle grade and YA literature. The next book I'm going to chat about is Mark Watney from The Martian. I read this book for the first time via audio, and I loved it so much. I not only loved the character of Mark Watney, but I also loved the narrator, and he really encapsulated his humor. I recently read Artemis by Andy Weir, which is the same author, and it was not the same experience. I did like that book. I didn't love it, but I love this book. I think I've listened to this audiobook like 2 different times because I was so captured by the narrator. And even though this is a very, very science heavy novel, I felt like the humor really made it so easy to digest. And I just loved the way Mark was portrayed. And he's just so funny. And he's just like takes his experience and just makes the best out of it. But I thought that he was a great narrator. And there is a lot of science stuff, but I thought that it was really digestible. I think that's largely thanks to the character that he was. And I did not want to put this book down. I think I listened to it in like 2 or 3 days. And it's a pretty big book. But I really loved it. And if you also have not checked out the movie, I thought Matt Damon portrayed him so well, and I really, really did like the movie. I thought it was a pretty solid adaptation. There are changes to every adaptation that you see, but I actually really enjoyed the movie and the book as well, and I really enjoyed the audiobook. So that's another funny or humorous character that I wanted to tell you guys about. I could really do a whole video about all the narrators in Rick Riordan's canon because I think that they're all funny. But out of Sadie and Carter, out of Percy, out of Apollo, out of, Leo, out of everybody that Rick writes, I think Percy has stolen my heart from page one in The Lightning Thief. It's kind of going back to the dynamics I said with Thorn in Cress. He has such like a unique outlook on the world that he's in, and he's just funny. The way he takes in the messed up world that he's living in, and like how he describes it and how he experiences it, is just funny. He's just hysterical, and I just love reading about the world from his point of view. He's a joy to read from, but also to listen from. Right now, I'm in the middle of rereading Lightning Thief on audiobook, and I just love the narrator for all of those books because the narrators just really capture those characters. And I really love them. I mean, I could spend all day talking about him, but I think he has some of the funniest moments. I think Leo is a little bit quippier than Percy, but I really do love them both. And they're just so fun. And I just like, if reading from his point of view, he is in like the worst situation ever, but he still finds his humor, and it's just so fun. So if you have not checked out anything by Rick Riordan, I do highly recommend the Percy Jackson series just because it's the start of like his entire canon. But anything by Rick is really good. But Percy is definitely still in my heart and is my favorite narrator from all of his reads. The last set of characters I'm going to talk about is Alex and Connor from the Land of Stories series by Chris. I really enjoy the narrators in middle grade series, especially it's like Percy Jackson and all of Rick Riordan's canon, but I really do love this series as well. Again, it's just a fun point of view to be in, especially because they're in this fantasy fairy tale world. Just love seeing how they, reconcile it in their head and how it like makes sense to them. Because I love type of stuff like that. Like I think that's so interesting and so fascinating. But I think that they're both funny. I think their dynamics together are really funny, and how they interact with the fairy tale characters are really, really funny. But they definitely are the heart, like the cornerstone of this book. And I love both characters like individually. I think that they're just fun to be around. But I just love that their humor and how they take in the situations. But those are some of the characters that I think that are funny, or I would consider like pranksters. Connor is definitely a prankster in this book as well, like Fred and George. The other are just funny or humorful, and I just love their takes in these messed up worlds that they wound themselves in, or in Mark Watney's case, the world that he was abandoned on, I guess you could say. But I really like these characters. Let me know in the comments or on my blog what are some of your favorite funny characters or pranksters, and I will talk to you guys next week for another video. Bye, guys!